yeah, I guess, why don't we start a conversation? Supervisor Cortese, if you want to either comment on that or kind of comment on some of the conversations we had earlier, and the three of you can kind of jump in there.
Yeah, I'm happy to just kind of jump in. Obviously I don't know anything about the New Jersey model other than what we just heard, and heard a little bit about it before I got here this evening, and those kinds of projects that I think we call urban villages here in the city of San Jose. Anything can be planned and designed really around an urban village so long as it's consistent with the city's general plan in this city, in the city of San Jose, and zoning requirements and so forth, which can easily incorporate something like a charter school into that. I don't think the general plan, and we can hear from our city representative, San Jose representative, has that kind of a designation around public schools like this, or like the other 200 public schools in San Jose, or the more than 200 that there are in the county. Those are usually designated public, quasi-public, and therefore the school district itself, instead of just being able to build whatever it wants, like you can do when they build a school, when this school was built, it did not need to seek entitlements or zoning from the city of San Jose. If the school was built in the county, not in the city, or in Los Altos, or Mountain View, or Sunnyvale, the same rules would apply. You're building a school under California state law, you're essentially exempt from the normal entitlement process. There may be a few things that you have to coordinate, but not much. Sometimes people complain about pickup and drop-ups around schools, and why didn't somebody coordinate that better with the city and the surrounding city streets? Oftentimes, the answer is, well, there wasn't any coordination at all, really. The state approved plans for the school, and the cities approved the surrounding neighborhood. That said, I know it's very difficult to get general plan amendments in the city of San Jose, having served there for 8 years myself, including a couple of years as vice mayor, especially in this environment where yes, urban villages are the premium. That's what's being called out as the favored MO for development, but they're also very predetermined as to where they are, which I'm not, casting an opinion one way or the other on that philosophy. It wasn't that way when I was on the council. There was a lot more latitude in terms of taking properties and projects and developments a little bit more on a piecemeal basis. That's the way it is now. And again, I don't know how easy it would be or hard to be to do something like that. Like this on an actual public school site. Certainly on a village site or a private development site, it seems to me it would be doable, assuming the economics are there. I think here, having served as a school board member for 8 years, a council member in San Jose for 8 years, and almost 9 years now on the board of supervisors, that in education for me being kind of a common thread through all that service to youth, I think one of the most challenging things we face here is the relative underpayment of teachers in terms of compensation and salary relative to the cost of living. And you can say that about almost any middle income category of worker right now, because only about 14% of the people who live in this valley right now can afford to buy a house based on today's prices, and almost all, over 90% I think it is, of people who own homes couldn't qualify to buy the home that they live in if it was back on the market. And then we have essentially the most underpaid category of worker perhaps in the entire marketplace, which is the teachers, especially public school teachers, trying to qualify for housing with rental rates that are easily twice what we would expect them to be, maybe 3 or 4 times, depending on your threshold of pain. We have a tremendous ability in this valley to create jobs. We create jobs here, 21,000 in a month, not 8,000 every 10 years like they do in Austin. And we don't build housing that fast, and we don't build roads that fast, and we don't build public transit that fast. And that's been a problem now, that's been compounding for a long time. So I am certainly an advocate for anything that we can do to assist not only teachers, but other essential workers in our economy here who are not tech workers, who need to be here, who need to live here, who need to be in proximity to where they work. We passed a $950 million housing bond here in November of 2016, thanks to all of you. And it required a 2/3 threshold because that's what it takes to pass a special tax in California. Even though it's not a tax, the bonds are paid with tax revenues, so the rule applies. And 250 million of that is designated for the kind of affordable housing that you're talking about here. 700 million of the 950 is for extremely low income or homeless. And that's just a category of funding we really never had in San Jose County or the city of San Jose, at least in all my years. The idea was your money goes a lot further if you try to work a more standard affordable housing component, 20% affordable at the appropriate AMI, like you folks are doing with these villages. And for years and years, our redevelopment money, 20% of that money came right off the top of the property tax roll in redevelopment and went really directly into that for kind of housing. Redevelopment went away here in the state. We at the county thought it would be prudent to pass this housing bond to be sort of a replacement for that kind of money. And so that's why we didn't do $950 million just for homeless, even though we have 7,400 homeless in this community. We knew that some of that money needed to be designated to assist with workers like teachers, people that wanted to be in closer proximity to their work. And so those formulas are all set up so that that money can be invested in low-income categories, not necessarily very low income and not extremely low income. So we have the capacity at the county to assist with these kinds of projects like you're talking about, irrespective of which city you're in. They could be in San Jose, they could be in Mountain View, Campbell, it could be a school district as a separate agency coming and saying we want to build housing on our site. It meets your county formula for low-income housing, and we would like to get a piece of that $250 million to contribute so that we can keep our rents down. And that is possible. I know in talking to the organizers before I came here, one of the things that is a little tricky is meeting, even when you're trying to do a good thing. It's like that rule, no good deed goes unpunished, but the fair housing laws, both in the state and more particularly the federal level, make it very difficult to designate housing out in the private sector when it's not completely government owned. Meaning, I'm a landlord, I have apartments, I want to rent them. I have teachers in my family, I may say, I want 50% of my apartments to be rented to teachers, just as an altruistic thing. It is difficult, according to all the experts and attorneys that we're talking to all the time in the county, to get away with that under the fair housing laws. Because if you think of it this way, the first time somebody comes up and says, I'm not a teacher, but I am a firefighter and I'd like to rent one of those, or I am not a teacher, but let me think of another category for you real quick. You can name it yourself. I'm not an elementary school teacher. I am a college professor. I'm an urban planner. I hold a Section 8 voucher. We have laws in our own county that say you cannot discriminate against somebody with a Section 8 voucher. And if the answer is, look, we'd love to accommodate your Section 8 voucher, but we have teachers ahead of you, how do you reconcile those competing laws? So I'm not saying it's impossible. Obviously, these folks have figured out a way to do it, and that would be wisdom, that would be welcome, for us to understand your best practices, assuming at least the federal laws are the same in New Jersey, but I'm sure the state laws might be a little bit different. So there's some things that we would need to understand in order to make sure, as we did that, you know, to make people comfortable that if we put $25 million or $50 million into a teacher housing project, it was actually going to be for teachers in perpetuity, essentially. That would be our goal at the county. I'll throw in one more thing real quick, and that is just that when I was a school board member and we looked at developing a huge piece of land that we have around the light rail corridor at Eastside Union High School District that's used to be the bus yard, no buses anymore, right? It used to be the central office expansion area. Well, they're not expanding. And we wanted to put that into teacher housing. And almost everyone we talked to came back and said you'd be far better off selling the land or joint venturing with a developer that will pay you a lot of money for your equity. Take the equity and put it in an annuity and then use that money to create teacher housing vouchers for your own teachers. They can use those anywhere. If they want to live in Willowgun, they can. If they want to live in the east side, they can. If they want to live over here in the neighborhood we're in today, they can. It's a fungible, as attorneys would say, way of dealing with the situation, a transferable way of dealing with it, much like a Section 8 voucher, with the credit of the school district behind it. So it's another way. You know, we heard about the Smithian proposal the other day, and I didn't vote against that. I didn't vote for it. It's the first time I abstained on a vote in my entire time on the County Board of Supervisors. The reason I did not support it is because just with the land alone, the $6 million worth of land, if you extrapolate what you could generate in terms of teacher housing vouchers with that money, just by keeping it on investments in the county investment pool, you could do a lot more than 50 or 60 housing units. And keep this in mind, in Eastside Union alone, which is just one of 8 districts in my 10 districts in my supervisorial district, there's 1,200 teachers. So who needs a voucher? Get in line, maybe it's 10 or 15% of the 1,200, maybe it's half of them, but I'm not sure we need to build a unit for each and every one of them. I think probably all of these ideas are going to need to be part of a collective effort to try to elevate how we deal with these particular workers that are so important to our children. Anyway, thank you. I hope I didn't go too long.